All right, so have you seen this picture of a plane like completely upside down on the runway in Toronto?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, isn't it?
It is. It's Delta Flight 4899. And like, I know anytime we see something like this, it can make you think twice about hopping on a plane.
Right.
But, well, what we want to do today is kind of unpack this whole thing, see what we can learn about, well, how these crazy situations actually play out, what it says about safety and all that.
Yeah, and how often, thankfully, things actually go right, even in some pretty extreme circumstances.
Exactly. So, all right, let's set the scene. It's Monday, right? We've got this Delta flight coming in from Minneapolis, headed for Toronto Pearson Airport. And oh boy, the weather, it is not messing around.
Sounds rough. What were they dealing with?
Like everything you can imagine. We're talking blowing snow, so visibility's terrible, strong winds, like gusting up to 37 miles an hour, and on top of all that, freezing temperatures.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot for any pilot to handle.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. You can't just rely on what you see out the window anymore.
Right. You're flying on instruments, making decisions based on data, not just visual cues. And the margin for error shrinks considerably in those conditions.
Yeah, for sure. And so, well, it seems like, from what we know so far, that kind of perfect storm of awful weather did play a role in what happened.
Right.
So the plane, it touches down, right? But then it starts skidding, veers off the runway, and you've seen the picture. It ends up slipped upside down. I mean, just totally surreal.
It really is. And you can only imagine what was going through the minds of the passengers and crew in those moments.
Totally. It must have been terrifying. But here's the thing. Everyone survived.
That's incredible.
It is. Every single passenger and crew member, all 80 of them, got out safely. Emergency crews were there so fast, and yeah, some folks needed medical attention, 15 in total, but only 3 ended up with serious injuries. 1 child and 2 adults. I mean, considering how the plane landed, it's almost unbelievable, right?
It is. That really speaks to a couple of things. How well-trained flight crews are for these situations, how strong modern aircraft are built to be, and how critical that rapid response from emergency teams is.
One thing that stood out to me was how both Delta and the Flight Attendants Union, they both put out statements right away, really focusing on how everyone was okay.
Yeah, that's important.
It makes you realize, like, those safety briefings we all kind of tune out before takeoff, they're not just going through the motions. That stuff could actually save your life.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the immediate response. Incidents like this, they trigger a whole wave of investigations and analysis. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada, they're leading the charge here, and their work is super important, figuring out exactly what happened, why, and how to prevent it from happening again.
So how does that work? What's involved in an investigation like this? What are they looking at?
Well, they'll look at, pretty much everything. I mean, the black box data recorders are a big one, of course. Those capture all the conversations in the cockpit, the flight data, everything. But they'll also be looking at weather conditions, obviously, the decisions the pilots made, the aircraft's maintenance records. It's like putting together a giant puzzle.
Yeah, I get it. So it's not just about blame, right? It's about using the information to learn and make things safer in the future.
Exactly. Every incident, even near misses, they all contribute to this ongoing evolution of safety protocols. I mean, think about it. Investigations from past incidents, those have led to things like the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, TCAS, that helps prevent mid-air collisions. And we've got ground proximity warning systems, too. Those let pilots know if they're getting too close to the ground.
Right. Yeah, all those systems are pretty impressive. It's just, we've had this incident, and then there was that mid-air collision in D.C. recently, and that medical jet crash in Philadelphia, too.
A lot happening at once, yeah.
Makes you wonder if flying's getting more dangerous, doesn't it?
Sure, I can see why you'd think that, especially when these incidents seem to happen close together.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, it's important to keep in mind that air travel is still incredibly safe, statistically speaking. These incidents are actually really rare when you think about how many flights take off and land without a hitch every single day.
Well, that's reassuring. So, thinking about everything involved here, the weather, the technology, the decisions people made under pressure, what stood out to you as being really important in this incident? What helped make sure everyone got out okay?
Well, I think the fact that everyone walked away from a crash this traumatic, it really speaks to how tough modern planes are. And the safety procedures, they really work. The investigation will give us the specifics, but I think this is a pretty powerful example of how the whole aviation system, all the different parts of it, come together to protect people, even in the most extreme situations.
Yeah, it makes you appreciate all that goes into keeping us safe up there.
Right, and it also makes you think about what's next? What advancements are being made? What new challenges are we facing? Technology keeps evolving, air traffic keeps increasing. So how do we stay ahead of the curve and keep making flying safer?
That's a great question. Definitely food for thought. I think this whole deep dive, it's given me a new perspective on just how complex and honestly how resilient the aviation system is and how many people are working behind the scenes to keep us safe when we fly. Thanks for breaking it down with me. It's been a fascinating look at a, well, pretty intense situation.
You got it. Glad we could do this. It's important to have these conversations.
Absolutely. And for all of you listening out there, thanks for joining us. We'll be back with another deep dive soon, so stay tuned. ATRER.